Hi, my name is Lisette Guerrero, and today is February 12th, 2018. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the axial and appendicular skeleton of the human body. Okay, so we're going to get started. So for the skeleton, we're going to focus on the facial bones first. So we have the nasal bone, which is located here in the middle. The sphenoid is inside of the orbit of the eye. It's straight in the middle in the back part. Sorry, my fingers. And then we have the lacrimal. The lacrimal would be right here on the edge. It's kind of like where the tear ducts would be. And then we have the ethmoid is right behind where the tear duct is, so it's kind of in the middle there. And then we have the zygomatic, which would be like this area right here where the cheekbone is. We have the maxilla is right here. The maxilla is the one that holds our upper teeth in place. And then we have the mandible, which is the bottom part right here. We have the frontal, which is the bone right here in the front. And the vomer is that little line that we have here in the middle of the nasal bone. And then we're going to move on to the posterior skull. So the posterior, we're also going to show the mandible, which is this part right here. This is the mandible still. And then we have the occipital, which is this part here. And then we have the parietal, and that's the two top sides, this side and this side. We have the temporal, which is the sides right here. And then of course the other side. And then we're going to move on to the lateral skull. For the lateral skull, we have the ethmoid, which again, it's not necessarily the lacrimal is here in the front, so the ethmoid is a little bit behind it. And then we have the frontal bone is this. We have the lacrimal, which we just mentioned, is the front part right next to the nasal bone. And then the mandible is this part here. The maxilla is here, the one that holds our top teeth in place. The nasal is this one right here. The occipital would be this here in the back. The parietal is the one here on the top. The temporal is right here on the side. And the zygomatic is this part right here, which is like what I said, that kind of like the cheekbone. Then we're going to move on to the inferior skull. So for the inferior skull, this is what it looks like. So we're going to see several structures here. So first of all, we get to see the ethmoid. The ethmoid is that little line right here in the front, in the middle. And then we have the frontal, which remember, kind of like the forehead is where the frontal bone is. So this is the frontal here. Then we have the occipital, which is the back right here on the bottom. And the parietal, it would be the outside, this side, and this side as well. And then the sphenoid would be right here in this little segment here. I think it kind of looks like a bat or something. And then the temporal, which would be the inside, this part right here and this part right here. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the vertebral column. So for the vertebral column, we have the atlas, that's also known as C1. So it's this top vertebrae right here. It's the first one of the cervical vertebrae. It looks a little bit different than the other ones. That's also known as the atlas. Then we have C2 is the second one. That one is known as the axis. The cervical vertebrae would be C1 through C7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So all of these are cervical vertebrae. And then we have the coccyx is this right here on the bottom. It's also known as, it's referred to as like the tailbone. We have the lumbar vertebrae, which is like the low back. So that would be like in this area right here. And then we have the sacrum, is this part here right above the coccyx. And then we have the thoracic vertebrae, which would be from the cervical, it would be the thoracic, and then after that it's the lumbar, so that's the vertebrae. Then we're going to be looking at the thoracic cage, so that's the front. So for the thoracic cage, we see that we have the body of the sternum right here. And then we have the false ribs. So the false ribs are ribs 8 through 12. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are all false ribs because they don't directly connect to the sternum. They connect to each other here. And then we have the floating ribs, which are number 11 and number 12 right here. These don't connect to anything on the front. And then we have the manubrium of the sternum is right here on the top. And then we have the true ribs, which are 1 through 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are all true ribs here. And then we're going to move on to the appendicular skeleton. This is the pectoral girdle and the upper limbs. So the clavicle is this right here on the top. And then we have the humerus is this. The radius is the one where the thumb is. So this is the radius. And then the scapula is this here on the back, the shoulder blade. We have the ulna, which is the opposite of where the thumb is, so that would be the ulna here. Then we'll go to the hand and the wrist. So for the hand, it's a little difficult on our skeleton. It doesn't, define them as well as like the textbook does. But this is the hand. So for the hand, we have several areas. So we have the okay, so we have the capitate, which is in the middle, and then we have the hamate, which would be right next to it on this side, and then we have the lunate, which is right on the bottom over here, and then we have the scaphoid, which is on the bottom here on the opposite side. We have the sesamoid, which are the little tiny bones that are found, like, let's say actually these little tiny bones that are there. And then we have the trapezium is right here below, like the thumb. And then we have the metacarpals are the first part of the fingers right here. And then the phalange are the rest of the part of the fingers, all of these here. We have the pisiform, which would be this part right here. And then the trapezoid is right here in the middle. And then we have the triquetrum, which would be right below the pisiform, and it would be like the bone that is right under it. Then we're going to go over the pelvic girdle and the lower limbs. So for the pelvic girdle, we have the ilium is this part right here. And then we have the ischium, which is the bottom right here, this part. The pubic bone would be like this area here. The femur, is this. And then we have the patella. Sorry, my patella fell off on this one, but this is the patella on this one. It's like the kneecap. And then we have the tibia is the thicker of the two bones on the leg, tibia, and then the fibula is the thinner one right here on the side. And then the ankle and the foot. So we have a few bones to go over for the foot. So for the foot, we have this bone right here. It's like the heel bone. This is the calcaneus. And then we have the cuboid. The cuboid is this one right here. Right there. We have the intermediate cuneiform. The intermediate is the one that is in the middle, right here. And then we have lateral cuneiform, which would be the one that is right here next to that one. And the medial cuneiform is the one on this side right here. The metatarsals are these right here in the middle. The navicular is right behind those other ones, is right here. The phalanges are the rest, like the tip part of these. And then the talus is this bone that's right below the tibia. That's it. Thank you so much.